Good morning, everybody. I'm back. Um, so we talked about my growing up. We talked about basically my move to Charlotte from the mountains of North Carolina, getting all the kids through college and two in grad school, and what they're doing right now. Now it's time to talk about me. So, I I think many of you know that right after the election in 2020, I got very, very sick. I woke up one Sunday morning and really couldn't breathe. And, I've been a smoker for forever, right? Um, And as soon as I could breathe again, I went out and had a cigarette. Sad but true. Lizzie was home, Sam wasn't. And it was scary. I scared her, I scared me. Um, but really got over it and didn't think much about it. So, and Joe Biden had won the election the day before. So that had been announced. So that was really, really cool. And so this was early November 2020. And then my sister passed away um, at the end of November, right around Thanksgiving. And that was devastating. And Lizzie and Samantha and I went to New Jersey during COVID to go to her funeral. And we went out to eat at a place Karen and Pete had loved and I had been to with them multiple times. And we all wore our masks, and in between bites of food, we put our masks back on. And we went to the funeral the next day, and we're in their church, all masked. But I really, really wasn't feeling well. And I was having problems driving there, and it was scary. But we got back from her funeral, and I continued working. And, we got into December, and we were getting ready for the holidays, and Christmas hit. And it was COVID. So Brett and Kenny came in, and Ken, Samantha's boyfriend, came over. And, the girls were there, and they were still living at home. And we sat in our garage, and I was too tired to even make snacks for everybody. And if anybody knows me, I love cooking, and I put on a spread, you know, at the drop of a hat. And I yelled at Lizzie because she made a joke, and I just realized something is wrong. So after that, I woke up the next day and I told the girls I'm going to make an appointment to go to the doctor. And I got an appointment scheduled for December 30th. And and I went, and I wasn't supposed to see my doctor, Dr. Wong, who I loved absolutely. And I had to see his PA. And I go in, everybody's mad until you're called in. And I finally got called in, um, got weighed. I weighed barely 90 pounds. Um, my legs were swollen, and I didn't feel well, and I went in, and the first thing they did was they did a COVID test, and then they drew blood and they tested things, and the next thing I see is Dr. Wong, and he's in there, and he said, "Barb, you're dying, and you need to leave here immediately and go right to the hospital because you're in cardiac failure." And you have heart failure going on right now. And I'm like, well, I'm working tomorrow, and I'm covering for two people, so I'll go after I finish work. And he just looks at me like I'm totally crazy. And I said, I want to go home, pack, work. It's gonna be a quiet day, and I can get out of there and get to the hospital early, so, that's what I'm gonna do. And he said, "I'm gonna follow up with your kids and make sure you do." And he did. He called the next day, and I got home, and the girls and I ate Twizzlers and, gummy bears and Skittles for dinner, and I drank wine and smoked a lot, um and I told him what was going on. And Kenny was out of town with Brett, and I said, "Let's wait until he gets back before we tell him." So I packed that night, made sure all my clothes match, my socks match, my underwear match. I had great outfits. It was very cold, and I told the girls, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do New Year's Eve, our shrimp and grits for New Year's Eve tomorrow. And all day they waited, and it was very quiet. And so finally, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I signed off, let my boss know I was heading to the emergency room because I was very sick. Um, and I'd keep her updated. And I let them take me in the emergency room, and they couldn't even go in because it was COVID. So it was a madhouse. I sat there and felt so crappy, so really shitty. And well, I was in the hospital from New Year's Eve 2020 to January 18th, 2021. So it was a long time. But I finally got admitted, and they had to keep me in the emergency room because they had no rooms. And that was probably about 5 in the morning. So it had been, I'd been there 12 hours before I even got a room. And then the doctors started coming in to see me, and only one of my kids could come in each day. And Sam came that first day, and I had surgery and had a toe removed. And I think most of you know that I'm missing the tip of my finger. That happened. Oh, Kenny, by the way, I missed your anniversary. Happy anniversary. Sorry I missed it. Um, but I had that right before his wedding. And then I had my little toe on my right foot removed emergency room. And then I finally got to a room in the cardiac wing. Um, and I, you know, had everybody in, and we when people were meeting with me and doctors, Kenny would be there with his notebook. The girl, one daughter would be there, the other daughter would be FaceTimed in, and we did that, and they were really good. I kept my notes, and took asked my questions, and it was a great team. um but I finally, um I they you know decided I'd be having my surgery on January 7th. 2021. And so we were preparing for it, getting ready. And, Lizzie got to be with me on January 6th, 2021. And I was glued to MSNBC um, at the hospital and just watched it constantly. And, well, from 1 o'clock on, I watched the riots at the Capitol, and it was appalling. It was unbelievable that it could possibly happen in this country. Um, it disgusted me. Um, and I continued because I couldn't sleep. I was when I they finally took me from that room. They took me to the cardiac ICU and prepped me for surgery, which I was scheduled to have the next morning. Um, and Kathleen was my nurse's name, and I just sat there all night and continued to watch videos about the January 6th riots. I was watching basically live. I saw when they finally um, got back into the Capitol. I saw what happened to Pence. I don't even like Mike Pence, but it was unbelievable. I saw Nancy Pelosi pull everybody back in, and they did the vote, and they certified it, and that was amazing. And I couldn't believe our supreme leader was such a true ass in what had actually happened. And sorry for my language, but it was unbelievable. And I watched that all day and night. And then it got to be time. It was 5 in the morning. The girls got to come in, both of them. And Kathleen was nice enough to um, find a spot that both girls could be there for me. And Kenny called in. He got there later that day. But I was, um, I ended up going in for my surgery. Um, and I ended up in a medically induced coma for 72 hours. So this was on Thursday, the 7th. And they brought me out of it on Saturday. And I miss Samantha's, even though it was virtual, her actual graduation from college. So that was horrible, and I felt badly. Um, but I was in a medically induced coma. The girls and Kenny went through hell. I heard Kenny even went to the chapel and prayed. And I raised three agnostics, and I'm quite proud of that. Um, so Kenny praying, it was a scary time for them. And later on, I learned that I started to bleed out, and they had to kick um, the kids out of the room and take care of that. Um, but ultimately, I did come out of it. But I had been watching the January 6th riots for you know, 16 hours. And all I thought about while I was completely in a drug induced state was about that. And I started truly believing that the nurses were trying to kill me because they were Trump supporters and they wouldn't let my kids in and they weren't going to give me my surgery. And it was wild. And if one of the nurses that I bet is watching this, I truly apologize for biting you and swearing at you. It was not my intent. Um, but I thought you were Trump supporters, and I couldn't tolerate you touching me. and trying to kill me. And you had tried to kill Mike Pence, and I don't even like Mike Pence. So I was defending Mike Pence. Um, Kenny got stuck with me when they were bringing me out. And this was like, had permeated my brain that this had really happened. And I demanded of my care nurses that I know how they voted because I didn't want anybody that voted for Trump taking care of me. They wouldn't let Kenny leave the room because they thought I was crazy. And I heard him on the phone with Brett saying, I think my mom needs to go to the psych ward. I think she has dementia. And I said, Kenny, you can get the fuck out of here because I heard you. Um, and yes, I did say exactly that. And I called the girls in the middle of the night thinking the dogs were in the pound and they had to rescue them. And it was really a crazy time. But I ultimately, Kenny never called James Comey for me, even though I asked him to. Um, but to this day it really seems very, very, very real. um well, I did ultimately recover and get out, and I was home to watch the inauguration, which was incredible. The poet laureate was spectacular. The music, everything was great. And I was quite happy Trump didn't show up. And it was sad that troops had to come into Washington to protect Biden. Um, and Uncle Joe, I think you're amazing. And I'm sorry about your health struggles. I understand. But I had in-home care, and I finally went back to work at NCR on March 1st, and was put on written warning the day I got back for something that happened while I was gone. And Dominique, my boss, sent me beautiful flowers in the hospital, but she could have shoved the flowers up her ass. And just respected me as a person, and actually, yeah, helped out while I was in the hospital, and actually done, you know, issues with the billing for Bank of Oklahoma. And it was a crazy time, but I went back to work, and I had worked from home with NCR. And when COVID happened, I wasn't even visiting my customers for banks. And so I went back to work, and I had in home care, and ultimately, kept going. Um, I, yeah, got my diabetic shoes and took care of that. And um, ultimately, uh, the following year, the girls moved out that fall. Um, and life just kept going on. Hope was getting older. Alfie needed to get walked. We found Sam paid for a dog walker for Alfie, and they were wonderful. And but Hope started getting old, and she made it to her 12th birthday, and we had a big birthday party for her. Um, but she had gotten very sick, and I thought I was going to have to put her down, but she did recover and lasted about 6 more weeks, and then I had to put her down. And like I said, the girls moved out and went their own way, and life just kept going on for me. And ultimately, the following February, I was let go by NCR, and that is what it is. I found a job in in manufacturing, and started that in September. of 2022. Um, but things were very hectic and financially crazy. And I found a place in Marion, and I was putting up a tiny home there. But when I got the job, I realized I couldn't live in Marion. So I stayed with Lizzie for about 6 weeks, and Kenny and Brett um, bought a house in Rock Hill. So I now live in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is really weird. So that's how I got here. But Kenny and Brett helped me out, and they got this house, and I'm here. I ultimately got sick again in January of 2023, and thought I had a stroke. They never knew if I truly had a stroke. They called it a TIA, but if you notice, my voice and my talking is impacted, and I ended up losing two more toes on my right foot, and they tried to save the toes on my left foot, and at that time they did. So I ended up going back in and seeing Ellen Bogan again, and ultimately I ended up losing all the toes on my right foot and two of the toes on my left foot. And my left foot, because there was a problem underneath the foot, that kept me in a wheelchair for about 3 months, and I ultimately um, decided it was time for me to retire because of my issues with my feet. And I never could have gone back to a manufacturing plant. Um, so I took early retirement, and ultimately last April in 2024, I started at St. Anne's, and that's really exciting as a substitute, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. I really love the kids, and I've kept doing that and really worked a lot this year. I miss the money right now because it's tough being on just Social Security, and because I had to take, I wanted to work till 67 and make more money and take home more, but I couldn't. And my disability with Social Security has never gotten approved, and it's taken forever. So, um, but I have Alfie, and he's great, and I also have a beast named Copper, who's a beast. He's an 85-pound moose. Um, but he's a good boy. He's a smart boy. I wish he just can jump 4-foot fences and takes off, and everybody in the neighborhood knows him. Right now, I have Fiona, Lizzie and Sean's dog. They're out of town, and I'm watching her, and that takes me to now. And I just decided it was time that I spoke out and did something proactive that could possibly make a difference. There's a lot of events coming out up, and hopefully I can get everything up and running and make this a reality, and just have fun doing it. And uh, Pretzel Nuggets, Pretzel nuggets.com is the website. Eventually, I'll get the correct site and taken care of. But again, I'm on a fixed income, so I can only do so much. Um, but we'll be doing some more live events. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I really am reaching out to people in Charlotte and Rock Hill. I love to cook. Everybody knows that about me. So if you want to come participate in my webcast, I'd love to have you. And I'll lock Copper up so he doesn't greet you in his very friendly and overwhelming manner. Um, but stop on over. 878 McNair Street in Rock Hill. So, yeah, I'll cook something for you. And everybody have a great Monday. And let's have fun together. But let's protect ourselves and our children and our grandchildren from what is going on. Well, bye, everybody. Have a great one.